Thank you, Minister Amihai Shiklir. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you so much for your words yesterday. May God make them real in a very close future. Ladies and gentlemen, authorities, representatives of free nations, friends of Israel, Brazilian Jewish community. Brazil and Israel share a long and honorable history. In 1947, a Brazilian diplomat, Oswaldo Aranha, led the United Nations General Assembly and helped make possible the vote that created the State of Israel. Brazil recognized Israel soon after its independence. For many decades, our countries worked together as democratic nations in diplomacy, farming, technology, security, and innovation. This friendship was based on shared values, freedom, democracy, and respect for life. This historic bond was clearly defended under President Jair Bolsonaro. As president, Bolsonaro left no doubt he stood with Israel in international forums. He made cooperation between our countries stronger. And he made one thing very clear. Brazil stood with Israel against terrorism, with no excuses and no double standards. Sadly, this legacy was broken. Today, anti-Semitism is not a small issue. It's not only part of history. It's a real and growing global threat. History teaches us that anti-Semitism rarely shows its face clearly. It changes, it hides, it uses new words. Today, it often calls itself anti-Zionism, but the goal is the same: to deny the Jewish people what every other nation has, the right to have their own state, dignity, and security. There is only one Jewish state in the world. To deny its right to exist is not political debate, it's discrimination. The attacks of October 7th showed this truth very, very clear. The world saw barbarism live, and yet in many places there was no anger, there was no support, there was silence, and in some cases, support for terror. Sadly, Brazil became one of those cases. Under President Lula, Brazil's policy suffered a deep moral failure. Let me be very clear. Lula is anti-Semitic. This is not a slogan. This is not exaggeration. This is based on his ideas, his advisors, his words, and his actions. The main designer of Lula's international policy, his top advisor, Celso Amorim, wrote the preface of a book that praises Hamas and presents it as a normal political group. Hamas is not a resistance group. Hamas is a terrorist organization, the same group that killed innocent Israeli families on October 7th. This shows that what we see today is not an accident. It's not a mistake. It's an ideology. And this ideology does not stay on paper. It becomes government action. In early 2023, the Brazilian government allowed Iranian warships from a regime that openly calls for the destruction of Israel to enter a Brazilian port. After the Hamas massacre of October 7th, while Israel was still mourning its dead, Lula rushed to accuse Israel of acting in a violent and unfair way. When Brazil's citizen left Gaza in November 2023, Lula used that moment not to condemn Hamas, but to attack Israel. From 2023 on, Brazil voted again and again against Israel at the United Nations and other international bodies. In February 2024, Lula crossed a moral line by comparing Israel's actions to the Holocaust, an anti-Semitic statement that insulted the Jewish people and minimized the worst crime in history. Brazil then called back its ambassador from Israel, stopped military cooperation with Israeli companies, supported false genocide claims against Israel in international courts, and refused to approve a new Israel ambassador. These are no single mistakes. They form a clear and intentional partner. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak today not only as a senator, but as a candidate for president of Brazil. Thank you. My father, Jair Bolsonaro, is today in prison because of political persecution, not justice. But ideas cannot be locked away, and truth cannot be silenced. I'm running for president because Brazil needs a moral and strategic reset. In this new moment for Latin America, the United States, together with responsible democracies, has helped build a new model of international cooperation. We already have real examples of this new path. The Isaac Accords, led by the great Argentine president Javier Milei, are a historic step forward. They strengthen diplomatic, economic, and institutional ties between Israel and Latin America democracies. And let me say this clearly, here and before history. If it depends on me, Brazil will officially sign the Isaac Accords in January 2027. We must also recognize the strong cooperation between United States and Paraguay in the fight against terrorism and drug crime in the three-border region, an area long used to fund extremist groups. This shows a basic truth. To fight terrorism, we need countries working together, shared intelligence, and moral clarity. Brazil cannot stay silent. Brazil must choose a side. In this global fight, Israel stands on the front line of democracy against barbarism. Let this be said clearly. Brazil must stand with Israel, with the Jewish people, with democracies that fight terror without excuse. History is watching, and history does not forgive those who stay silent. God will, the next Brazilian president will not be persona non grata in Israel. May God bless Israel. May God bless Brazil. Toda Rabá.